GX40RP. So, Doug-san, could you please explain about this machine, please?
Thank you. I'll be happy to. A lot more to talk about on this machine. So even though we moved you all down here to see what you can do, I'm going to actually go all the way back up to the feeder and show you a couple things, and I'll work my way through the press, and then we'll start running. So with an RP, which is the reverse printer, obviously you start with units that print on the bottom. And because of that, we get a very high feeder, which means you have a high capacity feeder for any of the board jobs you might run. But there's a couple extra features on this too that I'd like to point out. I know you can't see it from where you're at, but right where I'm standing is a little box on the feed board. And if you actually look at this feed board, there's a flat section here, and then it ramps down into what you would say would be a traditional infeed. That's because this press is equipped with an automatic nonstop feeder. And the swords to change the load are housed in here. So this is where, if you are doing nonstop load changes, swords will actually penetrate into the feed board, hold up the stock that you're still printing, and a new load will come in underneath. They'll marry together, and the swords will actually move out of the way. That's why this is here. But this little box I was talking about, that's an inkjet system. And its role in this is, you can think of it like inventory control. Every sheet we print is getting a number, sequential number printed on it. And actually you can see it on the sheets we have on the table. But that number can be used for a variety of things, actually. The camera will actually capture the number if it sees a defect. So if it catches something, that number is photographed as well as the defect. The report is generated. So it's telling you in the load, this sheet or these sheets, whatever it is, have this defect. The other thing I can use it for is if I need, for a particular account, maybe I would like them to pull a sample every 500 sheets. I can look at the number and know I'm getting a sheet every 500 sheets. Or if I need to print overs or I'm short, I can just look at the top of the load and see how many sheets I printed. I know how many are on there and what I have to do to correct the situation. So it's a lot of uses for that. The only penalty is you need a little bit of stock on the operator side near the tail for the number. So later on, if you'd like, you can come up and look at the sheets and you can see what the number looks like. Hopefully we'll be able to capture one on the presentation. Would you like to go ahead and start?
So let's start printing, please.
And we've got a lot to do on this, so I'll start talking. So this press also has PQA. Those are the cameras. But if you notice, in this case, it's got 2 cameras. And that's because we want to be able to read defects on foil. So these cameras can actually detect issues on foil and do the color as well, and the registration. On the RP, there's also cameras. That's looking on the backside. In this case, it's a single camera, but it's inside the press. It's looking, you can't really see it from here, but it's there. So we're getting defect detection there as well. Now, as I said in the presentation, the first job is on foil. That's what we're running right now. The first unit is running in opaque white. And when I say first unit, I mean first this side of the unit. The RP units have 2 special colors. So they're getting printed first. The sheet is without flipping, traversing down. And now it's just like a straight press. This is an opaque white unit. We are interdeck drying it with UV. That's classical UV or traditional UV. So when we do a roller wash, we're going to shut the lights down, so we do have to wait for a cool down and a warm up. And there's benefits with LED and there's benefits with classical UV. It just depends on what you want for your shop and what's going to help you. The press will accept both, or HUV if you want. So these are the process units here. This is where we're going to put our OP varnish, or a reticulating varnish, which gives a great effect on the sheet. And this sheet is off the press. They just printed this just now. So later on, even though we're going to quickly move you to another press, if you get a chance, take a look at the sheet. You're not going to see any of the marks in the foil that you might traditionally get on a perfector, where if you don't have the air set exactly right, you get some sheet whip. Now, all those noises just told me we came to the end of the run. And this is also being run fully automatically by the system. So you notice the operator isn't doing anything. He's enjoying printing right now. He can actually focus on the quality even though he doesn't have to do anything with it. Now the press is already into its next mode. It never stopped. So we printed one job, we're automatically into the next job. Now we're actually not putting sheets through, but it's in its wash up and make ready. That was all automatically selected by KP Connect. Now this, as I said in the presentation, has parallel control. So this has got individual drive on the ink rollers. It's also got individual drive on the coating roller. That's why this is actually taller. Most coaters you'll see is only this tall. This has the whole system because of the automation and the direct drive on the coater. So that's actually the coater system. So he's actually going to go start changing out the varnish. So he's scooping on that as well. I can look at this is a visualization we can talk about. I can look at that monitor and know what he's doing even if I can't see him. This is actually a simulation showing what's going on the press right now. As the plates are being changed, the blanket washers are engaged. They're washing the blankets. He's scooping the fountains. We're doing kind of everything at once. And that's a way to get some real efficiency out of the press, to get that non-productive time productive. Now, this is a live shot. That's the old plate that's already come out. He's getting that out of his way so he can scoop the unit. And remember, it's 75 seconds. It doesn't matter how many plates you change, it's fast. So this is the automatic fountain system dropping down. So he's changing the foil right now. This is a foil that completely covers the ink keys so that you don't have to wash the ink fountain. So that foil is gone. Now, there's another manufacturer that does something similar, but they still need to remove their cheeks and wash those up. Notice we don't. There's no wash up there on the fountain. So he's going to actually go back and put another foil in. It will tension up automatically. He'll close it up. And then that little line of varnish is all he really has to wipe up. And then he can reload the new ink. But meanwhile, the press is still doing things even though he's not. The ink keys for the new job are automatically set. He's going to change the coater plate right now because that's part of this changeover as well. So you can see how quick and easy that semi-automatic system is. Okay, and that's going to be filmed too. And I'm actually going to not talk for a minute and just let you watch what he's doing. Okay, I have to talk. That's the old plate coming off. It is a raised plate. It's been...
So this is a fountain film.
So this is actually the liner that they were scooping the ink on. That's what goes over the keys.
So this is our fountain film. Our operator is filling in now.
So while that's been done, that coating plate is already in.
Okay.
And he's done. Now, we do not have the coating roller changer in this press, but that's what it would look like on a video, and then right after this we'll show you a computer simulation of it. But that's a coating roller change that would be happening if this press had it. That's how simple it is. It just rotates in and locks up all by itself. Doesn't require anybody doing anything. So in this case, there's 4 rollers in the queue. It'll rotate to whichever one you've chosen for that job, or is required for that job, because KP Connect can do that. That's it. So the screen here is also, again, part of the visualization. So once you kind of know what the icons mean, you can tell exactly what state that press is in. Now, this press is going through an ink roller wash because we have to take that varnish out, and we're going to use that extra cleaning solvent function to make sure there's none of that varnish that's going to actually go into the ink later on. So as I said, that time has vastly reduced over what it used to be to do the same thing. And that time was better than doing it manually. So this automation is increased in leaps and bounds with how fast we can actually color wash a unit. So what he's doing right now, because I know you can't see it, so I came up, but he's right now just doing a little bit, well, now you can. He's doing a little bit of wipe down on the fountain ball to get that line, that bead of varnish off, and then he's going to load up and go. So once he does, the camera systems are going to take that automatically. Now, if you notice, we used it on this and we didn't have a problem, but that camera system was automatically detecting any defects that might have been seen on the foil. It was doing the registration, and it was doing the ink. It was reading the color bar and adjusting the keys automatically, both this side and that side. And you notice we got the color bar both sides? It's because it was the same lead edge all the way through that press. We didn't need to put anything on the tail. Now, that's a nice package layout. So sometimes you may not really worry about what's going to end up in the trim area. You can actually use a masking function with the camera to say, I'm only concerned with errors that will actually hit the print. I really don't care if it's an error that hits into my waist area. You can set that up in the camera system so it's managing only the work that you actually require. It's actually it's a very cool system. So this is showing you some of the changes. Thank you. How fast we've actually improved the make ready. So before, we might have been 24 minutes or so to do everything we do, where you change over the sheet size and you change the colors, and we do a wash up, and we change the coating roller and the coating itself. It might have been 24 minutes. Now that all those same steps down to 8 minutes. And there's a lot of units on this press. So you think about an 8-minute unit, including roller wash, and we did it on 1 unit. You might have a shop that might need 2 or 3 units washed up. Well, look how many guys we've got running this press. 1 guy. If you have a crew of 2 or 3, they can be working on each unit simultaneously. You don't have to wait to do anything sequentially anymore, and that's got to do with the parallel control on the press. So very efficient way of getting the press off of that non-productive time. Even though you're in a make ready, so it's actually productive time, you're still not printing. So we want to condense that down into an absolute minimum so that you spend more time printing than dealing with something like that. I'll just hold it. So the second that whole process is done, the press is now automatically pre-inking. Now, he's up there pushing buttons, but he's not doing it for the press, he's doing it for the camera system. This press is starting up automatically. And if you can hear, it's not running 18,000, it's running slower than that. And it's, if you can, I don't know if you can see in the double delivery, but you're not delivering any sheets either. These are the revolutions that the press is going through to bring the ink color down to the form rollers. So then all we have to do is drop the forms to the plate, and we wait for plate and blanket to ink up. That's what takes just 20 or 30 sheets, and then we're good for stability. Yep. You can't really see it, but there's indicators on the wash-ups to tell me, not the wash-ups, but the pre-inking, that tells me what units were going through what stage of ink up. And what I mean by that is, if you think about what he just did, he had all the rest of the units that had already ink on the rollers. But he had 1 unit that had no ink on the rollers because he just washed it up. So the program had to know how to pre-ink that last unit differently than it had to do everything on the other units. So those units already were inked up. The program is smart enough to know that and to handle each one accordingly. That's what I was looking at when I turned my head around the corner to see what mode it was in. Now I'm going to actually get out of the way here so you can see a little bit about what's going on. Now on this next job, which is going to be another packaging job, but that's going to have the green ink I talked about in the PowerPoint presentation. We're going to use the PDF comparator to check to make sure the content is correct before we get into our real run and potentially waste a lot of sheets on something that wasn't really good to start with. Even though the press is doing its job correctly, you might have something that happened in pre-press. So he's putting the sheet down on the PDCSX scanner, and he's going to scan it, and this is going to look like a normal scan that you would do for a color bar scan, which it's doing, but it's also collecting the PDF comparison information. So it's very fast. And incidentally, this device also has automatic registration. So if for some reason you don't want to use a computer on it or the camera on a job, you've got all the tools right here to do exactly the same thing. This is also the device that you use to capture all your quality control measurements, which is things like the gray balance, print contrast, well, delta E now can be done by the camera too, but grayness. There's a host of any of the quality control elements that you have in your color bar. This is a device that'll capture that, read it, and give you the report or tell you whether you're in spec or out of spec. And all of that is fully adjustable. So this is where okay, I'm just going to hold this thing for now.
Are you okay?
So this is where we were talking about standardization of quality. So if you can set up the parameters that you want for your shop or your client, because each client can have different sets of quality control, that can be programmed in not only to the system, but to the camera itself. That way, that client knows he or she is getting out the job that they've paid for. Doesn't have any defects, you can sort that with the load. It's got the right delta E's or the target densities or whatever your issue might be. So right now I can see this is the PDF comparator, and it's telling us we've got a scratch, and it's telling us where on the sheet it is. It's in that third image over. So we know when that load goes to finishing, if we decide not to keep the plates on, that one image is something we're going to want to look at. So she just told him to go ahead so he can start, because I was talking, not paying attention to what he was doing. Now we're doing, so we just verified the content of that PDF comparator that said the file content is correct, but we did have a scratch on the plate. So okay, we know that going into the run, we've chosen to accept that. The camera's going to now watch every sheet we print and not only control the ink keys. I keep stressing that because there's a lot of talk about on-press key control today, but that's only part of the story. You really also have to watch for quality. You have to watch if you're drying up or if a ghost appears or if your color starts contaminating. All of that the camera will detect, any change. And you have control over the tolerances on that. So here's the next job. It's been verified with the plates out of pre-press. It's automatically being controlled with quality. Target density's already been reached. We've already come into a stable print. I can tell by the trend on that. We're on the counter. And by the way, the system knew to put it on the counter, given the quality tolerances we've told to do it. So this is a type of work you can do time after time after time using these parallel control items, the pre-inking program, the camera inspection system. I know I've said it 100 times in this presentation, but these are the devices that will automate the process of print, even on special color applications. Now, just in case I didn't say this earlier, you're not limited to certain configurations. As a picture, as a diagram in the PowerPoint showed, you could have this 4/4. You could have it 5/5. You could have it 4/1. We have 6/2 here. You could have 6/4 if you want. Really, it just depends on the work you're doing and where you want to go with it. And if you want to print a straight job, just turn the RP units off. We're not flipping the sheets, so there's nothing that will hurt it at that point. Now, this is also where you can engage, if you wanted to, the logistics system. So if you really want to take advantage of this automation, you can run conveyors to the deliveries and the feeders, have loads come in and out automatically. Now you've taken something that was traditionally a craft and turned it into a manufacturing process. That's how you can get away with or get around the labor shortage that we're having, and especially the skilled labor. Let the Komori technology do it for you. Don't forget to look for the number on the edge too, because if we get a defect, that will capture the number. So this is a video showing the automatic nonstop delivery. And just prior to that, there was a video showing the automatic nonstop feeder, even though we don't have those on the press. So now I'm going to let the press speak for itself. It's running along at 18,000, and I'll be quiet for as long as I can, which won't be that long. For those of you that can see it, if you can see the trend line on density, it's right on. All the colors are holding right in the window we need.
And Doug-san, could you please explain about the non-stop feeder?
Okay. So on the video here, this is nonstop feeding. So you would be feeding a load like that. The swords are coming in from inside, as I described at the beginning of the demonstration. So it's inserting into the load from inside the press. So you don't have to worry about the device outside getting hit with a truck or a hand cart or anything like that. That will support the load. New load comes in, raises up, marries together, swords retract. You haven't even slowed down. What just was shown was an automatic nonstop delivery as well, which is also available on this. But with a double delivery, you're getting nonstop essentially, because you can just fill up one, switch to the other, and so on. It's kind of up to you and how you want, what you need for your shop and how you want to configure things. The particular customer that had built this press, because this is going out to production, they wanted the double delivery, and they wanted this long extended delivery, which I didn't even mention in the beginning of the press, but this is actually longer than it normally is. But this might be used for heavy aqueous curing, or maybe non-aqueous blister pack, which is, you know, you got to get it up to a certain temperature and then cool it down real quick. This extra space will give it to you. And you're not limited to this. You could go more. So if you have special requirements, please talk to your Komori representative about it, because we're only giving you, you know, the high points right now. There's much more to this press than even what we've talked about. So I think we're ready to move to the final press right now, unless you think we should say something else.
Okay, so second demonstration just finished. Yeah, thank you for your attention.